Hi friends, my name's Host Eric, and I'm the author of this provocatively titled video, Host Eric Declares Himself the Smartest Man on YouTube, or something like that. Host Eric, I'm the smartest YouTuber, quote unquote, something like that. And I'm making this video for a lot of reasons, but mostly because the idea of making this video prompted me to have so many stubs of thoughts. And I think it's interesting. So I'm going to make this video, and we'll see what you think about it, and if you think this is a good aesthetic choice or not. The declaration, Host Eric declares himself the smartest YouTuber, is hereby made. Okay? So consider the gauntlet thrown down to the extent that you can visualize these words as a metaphorical gauntlet. I mean, metaphorical in its physicality as a gauntlet, but not in its functionality as the indicator of challenge issued. So, the why. Well, number one is I'm basically saying, come at me, bro, to other YouTubers, because, in part, I'm very shitty at being active and engaging other YouTubers in a way I'd like to engage them, or I just fail to do it, or I'm for whatever negative light you want to cast the absence of me doing it, and fine, doesn't matter. The point is, that is so. To the extent that I'm going to make then efforts to engage the rest of the community, I would prefer to be able to somehow attract enough interest to have people actually choose to engage me. I do make this provocative claim, and I'm also not just some blowhard who I'm not rational typology, right? So rational typology came into the typology community swinging, so to speak, without any stick. That's not me. And so I understand, in some regard, that it's not a good way to make friends to provoke your neighbors into engaging you. And in that regard, the come at me bro strategy may backfire, so to speak, by denying me access to the same YouTubers whose attention I'm trying to get. However, here I am making the video anyway, and to some extent we can attribute that to my not valuing very much the practical implications of things, so much as the ideational possibilities of them. So another reason why is because there is one common quality among the kind of YouTubers who have the kind of success that I would like to be and have. And to describe this common quality, I'll first talk about the kind of YouTubers that have success but are not the kind I want to be. So there are plenty of YouTubers who make their way by just cutting together little clips and putting a little bit of commentary over it and making fast-paced, easy-to-watch kind of quick progressions of bits of meow. I don't want to be that. There are other YouTubers who make their way by being interesting personalities and or very successful at the kinds of videos that they make. The YouTuber who I see as being successful and being kind of scattered like me, but still being way more successful than me, and being kind of interested in the same things as me, but we don't end up pissing in each other's streams that much, but regardless, it is Tech-It Realm. That guy is able to successfully manage his way as basically a personality who does a number of different kinds of things, and you kind of sift through his videos and choose the playlist of the kind of things you want to see, and then one day you're feeling fond of the guy and you go, you know what, I'm going to check out these kind of videos that don't sound appealing to me, but I like this guy. So I'm sort of aspiring towards that kind of YouTubing. There's something of an example for me to look to and say, okay, well, something like that maybe, and the common quality that these people have is that they are to some extent getting by on their personality and their likability. Now, I recognize that telling everybody that I'm the smartest guy on YouTube is not a good way to be likable. I understand that. Contradiction implicit here. But nevertheless, one of my whys is this wanting to be a very distinct and memorable personality. So it's not just likability that gets people a certain place in people's consciousness. It's also distinction and maybe having some good reason to change your frame of reference about them. So I think most people explicitly, if they were to think about me or say something about what they think about me who know about this channel, they would correctly have this sort of like, well, you know, I don't know if he'll ever be successful really, but he's got his little cult following and that's fine and good for him. I think almost anybody who's objective about it would say something like that, right? So, so the thing is, if I'm going to change people's basic premises about me into something else, then I'm trying to say there's good reason for me to replace these other figures who are doing some kind of similar work worse than me if I can be more entertaining about it to you. This video may or may not be very entertaining. Like I said at the beginning, I'm not sure. And that's part of the problem with my channel, right? Is Eric's... who knows what he's going to throw up there? He doesn't, that's for sure. So which brings me to see what's most watchable. The question, what's interesting is I first wrote down here, what's interesting, quote unquote. But that's because I came into this video thinking it's worth doing because it's interesting. But as I made this thing, I realized I need to change that to most watchable. So in some regard, my instincts about what's most watchable are good, and in some regards, my instincts about what's most watchable are bad. So I found the last video about Jordan Peterson to be very watchable. Even though it was 38 minutes, I actually watched it myself all the way through after participating in the premiere, which I basically couldn't pay any attention to because I'm chatting. I'm arguing with Peter Natichi, of course, who does a wonderful job of playing my foil. Anywho, so, you know, it actually ran background one time when I wasn't listening to it. Then I watched it, and then I watched it again with Rachel. So the fact that I even wanted to do that shows that I found it very watchable. But are my tastes representative of other people? In other words, in my taste, it's watchable compared to my other videos, so to speak. I found it more fun than the average video, let's say. So one would presume that if one attains on this 2C vector of most watchable, that views move up accordingly and so forth, right? That it is possible to actually hit a certain amount of velocity that you reach escape velocity, and suddenly people go, okay, well, this has got interesting. This has gotten interesting, you know? That's what, I mean, again, I go back to the idea of interesting because I guess I can't conceive of watchability except through that frame for some reason. Okay, D, the flow. One of the problems I have, and one of the reasons why I make these videos a lot, these kind of sort of meta videos or whatever, is because I have this idea, I have this belief in this mystical thing that doesn't exist really, called the flow, which exists in debate, where there's an ongoing record keeping of all the arguments made in the round. Well, I see my entire YouTube time of 8 years or whatever as an ongoing round in which I'm sort of keeping track of all the arguments I've made until I ditch it and replace it with something new, and then I forget about it. But I'm keeping track of all the big ones so that, and refining them all the time, right? And this is the flow. So for me, when I say things on video, now they're on the flow. And I operate under the ridiculous presumption that now that I've said it, that everybody knows that that's been said now. So that's part of my argument now, and that's where we should be. We should all be there at the most recent speech, okay? Now, people don't actually operate like that, but that explains my own tendency to do this sort of thing. Number 3, FE impacting versus NE impacting. So the other thing is, in my perceptions about this video and how it's going to actually impact, I'm thinking in part about the FE impacts, which are to say, I'm thinking how it's always a bad idea to tell other people that you're the smartest person. Okay? I mean, you don't have to be an expert on being socially graceful to get that one. So there's that. And I get that there are a lot of people who just say, you know what, I don't care if they're right or not. He's a puffed up, self-important blowhard, and I'll have none of it, sir or madam. I certainly can see somebody reacting like that. I could see myself extracting some of what I just said, but saying, I don't want to listen to that guy. He's a dick anyway, and I'm sure he's not that right. I can see myself saying something like that, you know. So I do consider those factors, and obviously I'm trying to be even keel, and well, I'm just, as I always try to do, I have one go-to technique when it comes to managing people's perceptions. Really, it's not even a technique. It's just I just think, okay, well, just lay all the cards out on the table because you're not trying to hide anything, and at least if people get that you're authentically dealing with a real thing here that's weirdly challenging in lots of ways, then maybe you cut me some slack. 3B, any impacts impacting groups. I also operate under this frame of reference. It's probably also nonsense, of course, but nevertheless sort of defines who I am, that I have the capacity to be most impactful, to be most realized as myself by having ideas that have been big impacts. So one thing that I've consistently done across my time on YouTube and before is find in the world things that everybody believes or accepts that are in fact wrong. And I like to tip over those sacred cows and stuff. I'm well ahead of the curve on these arguments because the debate community in general is ahead of the curve. You can see the debate community's trends trickle down in time to the rest of society 5-10 years. But I'm ahead of the curve of the debate community as well because I'm not isolated there or here. In part, you know. I mean, certainly YouTube played a huge role in me being a writer. Without it, without YouTube, I couldn't possibly be the smartest man on YouTube. That goes without saying. So, but it's true in more than one way, you know. It is this open, transparent, sort of open source interactivity that I have with people that refines me. So that when I'm making this video this time, I try to be less in the throes of being expressive and more in the throes of being thoughtful. And it's not just a display, I'm actually changing how I am because I'm recognizing limitations and shortcomings implicit in my reflexive ways of being, thanks to, again, YouTube and cognitive functions and stuff. Okay, so anyway, I'm imagining me tipping over these sacred cows, and if that can become the accepted narrative, in a lot of instances, it can solve a lot of problems. We can start just with the cognitive function thing. The existing narrative scaffolding for psychology is an absolute mess. It doesn't know what itself is. It's got various capacities, you know. It breaks up the things that it can do into basically like 4 different classes of thing. It defines itself as basically anything that has to do with human beings. It doesn't have an explanation for personality at all. The thing that it says explains or links to personality. The thing it has to say about personality at all is the big 5, which is not an explanation for anything. It purports to be a descriptive measurement of some imaginary traits that people have called extroversion, which people don't have as a trait independent of a cognitive function, agreeableness, which people don't have as a trait independent of cognitive function / enneagram, conscientiousness, which is not a trait people have, independent of introvert sensing, extrovert thinking stuff, extrovert sensing stuff, and neuroticism, which is not really a thing except by extrovert intuition, probably, and a deliberation function, or I mean, I don't know. I would say INFJs are quite neurotic, so maybe I'm wrong there. I'm not quite sure what it would be with neuroticism, but still, the point is, it's not a discrete thing. Neuroticism, at least that one, in fact, it might be. You might see the same thing, the same neurotic cues caused by totally different things if somebody experienced trauma or something. So it's hard to say. And then the last one, which is openness. I mean, it almost certainly links to some sort of attentional priority, right? So obviously, action types are going to be more open than deliberation types, because deliberation types are a skewing of a person towards life such that they overweight making sure they don't leap before they look enough. So they run the risk of looking too much. That's necessarily so to have any kind of attentional priority, that those kind of trade-offs exist. So now the other thing is number 4, isolation. Go to 2A. In the status quo, I am very much in isolation on YouTube. I do not engage other YouTubers, and they don't come around much. Thor stops by occasionally to say hi in a live stream. He came by the other day. I was in quite a state when he came by. He came by right after I blew out a big cloud of my friend Dimitri, who makes me very strange. And so Thor probably was just like, what is up with this crazy guy? Well, see, this is the thing. If you make shit tons of stuff all the time, you're going to encounter the harsh reality in harsh ways that people generally watch a little bit of one thing for 5 minutes and decide to either trash, and 99% of the time will decide to just trash that whole manner of thing. Because they're saying, well, this guy's garbage, I don't like it. They don't like the 5 minutes they watch. They're going to project that onto everything. I will too. So I'm not blaming people for that. The thing is, since I'm not engaging with other YouTubers very much, I don't have a way really to get people to be exposed more, such that they desensitize to the parts of me that are like allergens that they find make them sneeze. So, in that regard, to the extent that I can engage other YouTubers, it would be an excellent way for me to engage potential viewers who may have already seen me and dismissed me. I am continuing to evolve. My videos are getting better generally, although it's like stock market, it's kind of like this. But, and I still make some terrible decisions artistically. I just I don't even want to talk about the words, that meditation video. I just never want to think or hear them again. So anyway, my wonderful wrap-up pizzazz. In order to make this video a hot ticket item and a big seller at the YouTube ballpark, I need some pizzazz here at the end. I don't have anything planned, but, well, as the famous philosopher Lao Tzu once said, if there isn't really enlightenment, then why are there enlightened people? One to think about, one to grow on. And, admittedly, lacking in pizzazz. So I overpromise and underdeliver too. You can complain about my lack of pizzazz, and I'm not really be able to defend myself. I'm sorry about that, is all I can say.